If I had a slogan for 2020, it'd be this. It would be shit year, good games. 2020 had a lot of really good games in it. Not only good games, but special games. Games that you will, have fond memories of for years to come. If we get a couple of those games in any given year, I consider that, quite the success. So, having said that, this is the top 10 list, for Game Break's best games of the year. These are just my personal favorites, right? I will say right out of the way, I know some of these games on this list, on a technical level or whatever, shouldn't be as high as they are. But, they have a special place in my heart. I really enjoyed them, and some of them have a lot of nostalgia for me as well. So, and that's always a contributing factor for games, right? In terms of how much we love them. So anyway, let's get to it. Top 10 list time, baby. Doom Eternal. The Doom series is one that I got into quite late. I kind of played some of the earlier games when I was younger, but Doom 2016 was my first big foray into the series. So, I had a lot of expectations for Doom Eternal, and I wasn't disappointed. I love me a good first-person shooter that has a good campaign. A lot of single player content, and this game has that. The campaign's entertaining, the gameplay is fast paced, the gunplay is fun, the music is appropriate, and in Doom Eternal, we get more world building this time as well. There's more of a story, whereas Doom 2016 was kind of, more making fun of itself and the genre at large. Doom Eternal took a more serious approach to its storytelling, which I appreciated because I loved, the whole dynamic between, there being, the hellscape or the hell plane, and there's also a heaven as well, and there's aliens there and all that stuff. So, I really enjoyed it. And the thing with Doom Eternal, and Doom 2016 as well, is, my natural instinct in a lot of shooters is to back into a corner and snipe, or to find a long hallway where I can mow enemies down as they come at me through a bottleneck. That doesn't really work in the Doom games. You are encouraged to move and haul ass around the map and blast things as quickly as you possibly can and as efficiently as you can. And Doom Eternal really spiced that up with, you very much having to make use of everything in your arsenal at all times in order to survive, whether it's using your flamethrower at the right time or your chainsaw and so on and so forth. But no, Doom Eternal, excellent single player first person shooter experience, and I highly recommend it for anyone who loves, fast adrenaline pumping gunplay. Resident Evil 3. Resident Evil, once again, is another franchise I got into really late, but not for a lack of trying. I tried to play Resident Evil 2 and to an even greater extent Resident Evil 3, but I just couldn't handle them. They were too scary for me. They were too horror intensive, because video games are already such an immersive medium that, the horror aspect of it, I just couldn't handle it. Especially 3, after that, amazing intro cinematic, one of the best of all time. The mood was set almost too well for what was to come in the game. It was just terrifying. And then you have Nemesis popping up in the game and chasing you around at any given moment. It was just too much. But many years later, I found the solution. Find someone to play with, and that someone is my wife. And we'll take turns playing, and the other will just watch on the couch, and it's just as entertaining to watch someone play and to be part of the experience as a spectator. But no, anyway, segue aside, I don't have the frame of reference for playing Resident Evil 3 Original when I played Resident Evil 3 Remake. But the remake was an excellent experience, not quite as good as 2, but still pretty damn solid. Nemesis was just as terrifying when he showed up. He was, unstoppable. You would do everything you could possibly do to get away from him. The horror aspect was there. It was a bit more actiony this time compared to 2. But, the gameplay was still incredibly solid, and the graphics were amazing. We still, it still had that sense of dread in the game. Every time you would go into a new room or around a corner, you would be wondering what's waiting for you. And it's one of those great horror experiences to share with a friend or loved one, in my opinion. And it just, it once again set the bar for what a video game remake should be. And if the Capcom leak is true and they are indeed working on Resident Evil 4 remake, I'll be first in line to buy it. Because these two, I never played 4 either. But, I hope to remedy that in, the not too far distant future. But no, Resident Evil 3, excellent looking game, has the horror aspect, good gunplay, good survival mechanics, just an all around great experience. Grandia HD Collection. Now, I know this is technically a 2019 release, but hear me out. You know, when the game was initially released, you know, there were quite a few bugs with it. You know, so I decided I'm going to wait till I iron out, you know, a lot of these bugs before I tackle these games because they're near and dear to me. And, you know, they've been given a nice looking HD treatment, and I want to experience them at their best. So, you know, I waited to 2020 when they got the appropriate patches and they played, you know, damn near flawlessly. You know, I had very little issues playing them now that the patches are out. And, you know, Grandia, if you are a JRPG, or actually scratch it, just an RPG fan, and you're hankering for a good RPG, both of these games fit the bill. They are one of the pillars of the RPG community. They are incredibly good games. They both have very lovable characters, great stories, and Grandia, you know, I challenge you to find an RPG series that gives you a greater sense of adventure. You know, adventure, key word there, than the Grandia series, especially Grandia 1. You know, to this day, I have yet to experience a game that made me feel like I was going on a true adventure, like those games did, especially once again, Grandia 1 did. And you know, they have excellent turn-based combat. They have one of the best battle systems ever made. And, you know, they have, especially Grandia 1, like amazing sprite work that holds up incredibly well, especially, you know, when it came to, you know, the battle sequences and, you know, the way the sprites could move during those set pieces. And Grandia 2 as well, even though it is, you know, originally a Dreamcast game and it's kind of got almost that awkward polygon structure, the art style allows it to hold up incredibly well. It still holds up very well visually, and it plays like a dream as well, you know. Both, like, there's a lot of debate which is the better of the series. You know, I would say probably Grandia 1, but both of them are amazing freaking games, and you should definitely play them. And I almost forgot, Grandia 1 and 2 have some of the best guitar work ever in a soundtrack and some of the best RPG battle themes ever. Trials of Mana. Now, this is a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine, this game. You know, there's a couple of reasons it's on this list. You know, one of them, it's the first video I ever did for Game Break. You know, it's the first review I ever did as well. And, you know, there's such a storied history with, you know, Trials of Mana being in Japan and making it over to North America. And, you know, it's also the best Mana game remake that we've had so far. You know, it did have some issues with it. You know, the biggest one for me personally was its difficulty, which has been fixed. You know, there has been a patch recently, I believe it's released in October, that does fix that, and it does up the difficulty. But I've yet to go back and try that out for myself. So at least they are addressing the issues that the game did have. But by and large, it is a 90s JRPG done with modern aesthetics is the best way I can describe it. You know, it's a 90s JRPG through and through for all its, you know, benefits and flaws. So, you know, having said that, you'll be able to decide, it's like, oh, I really like 90s JRPGs. You know, that sounds like the game for me. You know, if you did, then you'll probably enjoy it. Trials of Mana was a game that played it very safe. Too safe in a lot of ways. You know, they really could have expanded things, you know, especially like story-wise or character development-wise and stuff like that. But the gameplay is still incredibly fun. You know, the world is super bright, incredibly vibrant. You know, the characters look amazing. The world is an absolute pleasure to traverse. It just has some technical issues, you know, but by and large, I still think it's a wonderful experience. And this is a nostalgia pick for me, for sure. Can't even argue. You know, Trials of Mana, though, it's still a wonderful experience. I think everyone should try it and see what all the hubbub's about. You know, people are always talking about the Mana games and how great they are. And if you're really curious what, you know, what all the talk's about, definitely give Trials of Mana a try. Genshin Impact. For a game I had no intention of playing, I sure have played a lot of it. The thing that kept me away, the gacha mechanics, by and large, they don't really matter if you're a free-to-play player. You know, yes, they're going to like block you off from certain content and maybe certain characters, but by and large, the vast majority of the game and the majority of the game that I enjoyed or the things that I care about are free. So it's absolutely worth checking out if the gacha mechanics were the thing keeping you away. But no, it's got a fully realized, incredibly vibrant 3D world, you know, with amazing cel-shaded graphics and a wonderful anime aesthetic. You know, it has some of the best character design I've ever seen for a video game. You know, every time a character is released for this game, it's a goddamn event. And you know, it's got a good combat system. You're able to switch characters in and out freely, and it encourages you to manipulate, you know, various elemental reactions, which can be very fun. And the world itself is one of the biggest reasons to play this game. You know, I got lost in this world, just exploring every nook and cranny, looking for treasure chests, trying to find resources, finishing quests, and just seeing what secrets there were. And to top it all off, you know, it has excellent world building so far. You know, we've only seen part of the world. We're going to see more. And there's some very intriguing mysteries to solve as well. So no, Genshin Impact, even though it's a free game and it does have gacha mechanics, give it a shot. It's a AAA experience, beginning to end. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Fuck. I was not expecting to enjoy this game as much as I did. I was expecting a quality experience, yes, but I wasn't expecting to have that level of enjoyment with it. I really wasn't. You know, I enjoyed this game beginning to end, you know, and I played very, you know, few Musou games, you know, and I've always, you know, there's always been one thing missing, and that's a good story. And this game finally has a good story with good characters that a lot of people care about and have always wanted more screen time with. And that's what this game does. And for once, it makes all the cool characters surrounding Link and characters that people care about look like badasses. You know, and badasses we always knew them to be. You know, the Musou combat is blended perfectly with Breath of the Wild mechanics. You know, so it feels like, you know, you're definitely in the Breath of the Wild world, and they just, you know, tweaked the gameplay so you can fight in this war, essentially, to make it more believable, because it'd be really hard to pull off, you know, fighting a large scale conflict with, you know, Breath of the Wild mechanics. So the Musou mechanics, you know, solve that problem incredibly well. You know, there's hundreds of troops on screen at any given time. You know, everything flows together well. It has the Breath of the Wild art style that looks freaking amazing, you know, and it has all the characters that we care about again. And it is worthy, more than anything, it is worthy of the Zelda franchise. And it is a worthy prequel to Breath of the Wild. Arguably the best Zelda game, and or to many people, the best game of all time. So if you are hesitant about this game just because of the Musou style, and you're like, oh, I don't really like Warriors games, or like, oh, I haven't really tried them, they don't look really fun, give this game a shot, especially if you're a Zelda fan. You know, you owe it to yourself to play this game. And it is, you know, much higher on this list than I planned, that I thought it would be initially. You know, it is just an awesome Zelda experience with great Zelda music and great combat and a good story, you know, which is the thing that Musou games have always lacked for me in the past, and they fixed it with this game. But no, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, fucking awesome game. Go play it. Spider-Man Miles Morales. This for me was the feel-good game of 2020. You know, Miles Morales is such a charismatic, likable young man. You know, he's a great Spider-Man, and him and his friends and just, you know, the world he's inhabiting and the kind of person he is, it just gave me that warm feeling that I needed. He's the hero I didn't know I needed for 2020. You know, so playing the game as him was a pleasure beginning to end. The web slinging is really fun. You know, I would just cruise through the city just slinging webs, you know, swinging around, flying around, whatever, because it was just a lot of fun. It just felt good. Maybe it was just being outside amongst a bunch of people, you know, in a somewhat familiar setting that just maybe had that sense of nostalgia for me because 2020 we're all inside, right? But no, like, you know, so the web slinging's fun. You know, the combat is incredibly fun. You know, Miles Morales feels like his own Spider-Man, you know, with his ability to, you know, manipulate electricity or go invisible. He feels very different than Peter Parker. And the thing with Miles Morales is there wasn't that fluff that was in, you know, Spider-Man for the PS4 with Peter Parker. You know, there were little sequences here and there where it's just like, oh, this feels like filler. So Miles Morales, even though it's a short experience, it doesn't feel like filler at all. It's just all solid gameplay beginning to end. And while it doesn't have, you know, maybe as compelling of villains, for example, once again, it is a very much a shorter game. You don't have as much time to develop them. And the other games have all those super fucking iconic villains as well, right? Which this game doesn't, at least not for me personally. There was only one villain that I was really familiar with. So some of that was lost on me. Some of that childhood nostalgia was lost on me. But as a game itself, you know, great combat, great traversal, excellent load times. My first PS5 game I played, excellent graphics, and it was just a good, solid, you know, short experience. I can't wait for like a 40 to 50 hour game like this. you know, where we get, you know, a ton more villains and, you know, more ways to fight enemies and more things to do. Hopefully not fluff though. You know, Spider-Man Miles Morales, an excellent feel-good spider adventure. Ghost of Tsushima. As soon as I saw this game, you know, just the announcement of its existence and that it's an open world game set in feudal Japan, I was hooked already. You know, and the fact that it was, you know, being made by Sucker Punch, an extremely well-regarded studio, just, you know, even further sealed the deal. And, you know, as we got a proper look at the game itself and, you know, actually got to play the game itself, you know, the world is beautiful. It has a great art direction. You know, the world is an absolute pleasure to traverse. The graphics are great. You know, the load times for fast travel are super quick as well if you want to go around the world. And the combat in this game, you know, that there's a myriad amount of ways you can approach combat. You can go in sword swinging, which was my preferred way, honestly. You know, and with various forms of sword combat that you can switch between, and it very much felt like you were doing a dance and you felt like an absolute master of the blade once you got all the sword stances down pat. But if you didn't like sword combat, there's like essentially ninja or stealth combat where you could quite easily kill everyone and then they would never see you coming. Or you could just be an archer and just pick people off from a distance, which is also incredibly fun. And then you know, forgot to even mention ninja tools, bombs, kunai, you know, poison darts. There's so many different ways of fighting in this game. It's awesome. And then there's also duels as well. One-on-one sword duels in this game, which were one of the best parts of the freaking gameplay as well. And they were always epic. And they were generally at big story beats as well. And the story, speaking of it, was excellent too, you know, and the side characters, there were so many compelling side characters in this game. It was insane. So no, Ghost of Tsushima, it's a lot of people's game of the year for a really good reason, because it's freaking awesome. And I can't wait to see Sucker Punch make a sequel to it, because you know they will, because this game sold bucket loads, especially in Japan. So no, Ghost of Tsushima, if you love Japan and you love open world games, play it. It's freaking awesome. The Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel 4, and The Legend of Heroes, Trails from Zero. Yes, second place this year is a tie. So let's talk about the first game. Trails of Cold Steel 4 is the culmination, it is the conclusion of the Cold Steel sub-series, and for the first half of the overarching story. This game brings the goods and it delivers a satisfying conclusion. Something that is becoming rarer and rarer, it seems, in media at large. You know, we generally get good stories and we just get fucking shit endings. You know, which makes replayability for a lot of things, or rewatchability for a lot of things, incredibly difficult. But no, Trails Cold Steel 4 is a satisfying conclusion. You know, it has unparalleled storytelling and character development, you know, which is, you know, the MO of the Legend of Heroes series at large. And once again, it has excellent world building. You know, it has all of these well-developed characters over 4 games, finally getting the end they deserve. You know, it has, you know, great graphics in my opinion. It has some of the best music in the JRPG genre. You know, and all the characters are fully realized because they've had so long to do it. And it's got good turn-based combat. You know, one of the few JRPG series that is just, you know, maintaining turn-based combat, because a lot of them are really trying to evolve their combat systems nowadays. You know, some of them are sticking in there, but, you know, a lot of them are trying to get away from it and be a little bit more actiony. But no, it's got a good battle system. It's got tons of mini games in it for you to play if you want to shake up the gameplay. It has NPCs that all have, you know, their own little sub stories throughout the game. They always have new dialogue for you to enjoy. You know, it is just, you know, a master class in storytelling and character development and world building. And The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero is very much in the same vein. And the reason why I want to include this in this list is Trails from Zero is a game I've been watching from afar for years. And it finally got a developer level quality fan translation and quite a few tweaks to the PC version as well. And Trails from Zero is part of the, you know, the Crossbow duology. It's the first part. And it's very much a self-contained game. You know, a lot of Trails games have cliffhanger endings. This game doesn't. And while its cast of characters is smaller than the Trails of Cold Steel franchise, they're in my opinion, better developed. They get more screen time. And once again, the game just, does a great job developing its characters and its world, and its story is so fucking good. Like the duology of games, I see why all these people are saying they are amongst the best of the Legend of Heroes series, because they just are. They have great characters and a great story and fun gameplay and fucking, once again, amazing music. No, if you love RPGs with good stories, good characters, good world building, good music, fun turn-based combat, this is the series for you. And I know it's daunting to get into, but holy shit, is it worth it. But no, Trails from Zero, fucking loved it. Can't wait for the second part to have its, translation finished, and they're at like 80-some%. So I'm really hoping, I can really include this game in a top 10 list next year, because I'm sure Trails to Azure, or from Azure, I can't remember exactly which it is off the top of my head, will probably be included in it. But no, the Legend of Heroes series, fucking amazing. It'll probably always be on my top 10 list unless they drop the ball. Check the series out. You won't regret it. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Nothing even comes close to this game. As much as I did enjoy, Trails of Cold Steel and Spider-Man and Ghost of Tsushima, Final Fantasy VII Remake was so far ahead of everything else, it's not even funny. Final Fantasy VII Original is a game near and dear to my heart, so obviously when the remake was announced, I was fucking ecstatic. And worried and hoping they could do it justice. And when I finished this game, I was obsessed with it for days. And I had to go back in and play it again immediately, beginning to end. I can't tell you the last time I did that with the game. I think it was Mass Effect 3 that I played back to back. Since then, I haven't done that with a game. Because I just love the world of Final Fantasy VII and the fucking characters. Seeing Cloud and Tifa and Aerith and Barret in full 3D, in all their fucking glory, with amazing voice work. Holy shit, the voice actors delivered. And I played with the English voices, fucking amazing. And they subverted everybody with what remake meant. I won't go into details for plot reasons or whatever, but obviously, my expectations were subverted, and, I was pleasantly surprised, incredibly worried, when the game concluded, but after, digesting it and reading about what's going on and all that, came to love the game even more. And its combat system, I absolutely fucking love the combat in this game. I was worried because they were taking away the turn-based combat, but I love the new battle system. It was super interactive and fun, and I love switching between characters. It was fucking awesome. And I don't care if it takes 6 or 7 games to finish the story. If they maintain this level of quality and flesh the world out even further, I am on this fucking train to the very end. I just hope they can maintain their momentum and keep making the games, this level of quality. I could probably talk about this game for 2 fucking hours. Plot details, how it played, how it looked, the music was fucking amazing. I'm just so happy that we have more Final Fantasy VII games to come, and being able to see fucking Yuffie and Cid and Vincent in full 3D. Oh, I can't fucking wait. Can't wait. And just, there were so many scenes in this game, like, Barret, for example. Holy shit, was he so good in this game. His voice acting alone in this game was fucking amazing. Tifa, what a babe. Holy Jesus. And just such a sweetheart. And Aerith, so sassy. Love her. And Cloud, too. He's still very much, finding out who he is, but I love the development he had just in this game. And I'm looking forward to seeing all these new, these new locations we're going to be going to, and I guess locations we've seen before, but, based off what happened in this game, I feel like a lot of things are going to be quite different, but in a good way. I have a lot of hope for the Final Fantasy VII Remake series going forward. I really do, just because I enjoyed this game so fucking much, and I'm probably on a tangent now. And this was the game I played before making a channel, right? Because I very much wanted to look at it with a, not an uncritical eye, but just enjoy it fully without being like, oh, I have to make a video about it later and so on and so forth. But I almost want to, I'm almost waiting for later to be like a bit of a PS5 upgrade before I go back and play it again, because I definitely want to do a review for it and do spoiler videos for it and all this shit. Oh, it's just such a truly special game, and you know, I just hope Square Enix goes back and does other Final Fantasies at this level. Final Fantasy VI, anybody? Fuck yeah. But no, Final Fantasy VII Remake, excellent story, excellent characters, excellent fucking world building, great music. No, great combat. Did I say that already? I think I said the combat was good. No, it is just Final Fantasy VII in all its fucking glory. And it is, you know, the pinnacle of the Final Fantasy franchise for a lot of people. And it's up there with me. You know, it and 6 are just always fighting it out. Oh my God, I just love this game so much. I just want to keep talking about it. I'm going to cut it short because it's a top 10 video and we're going to stop there. But Final Fantasy VII Remake is my game of the year for 2020. And if they keep making the other installments as good as this one, you're probably going to see more parts of Final Fantasy VII on this list at the goddamn very top. But anyway, that is my list for 2020 top 10 games. What do you guys think? Are there some games from this list missing? You know, there's still some games from 2019 I need to get to, such as Demon's Souls, for example. I haven't gotten to it yet. It's next on my hit list after I catch up on some of these Final Fantasy XIV patches. But no, thanks for joining for this game break. Let me know what your top games of 2020 were, you guys. You know, are there some that I missed? I know there's some that I missed, but let me know what yours are, okay? Thanks for joining me for this game break. I'll talk to you later.